This is Patriots Draft Countdown, presented by Bud Light.
Welcome to the NFL Draft.
Hosted by the writers of Patriots.com. From now until you hear
the New England Patriots select.
The countdown is on. Welcome to the Patriots Draft Countdown, presented by Bud Light.
All right, here we go. It's the big finale of Patriots Draft Countdown. How's everybody doing? Mike Dussault here. Patriots Draft Countdown presented by Bud Light. Been on vacation for the last couple of days, so it might be some Marble Mount.
Kelly
back.
Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. And guys, we've been through the last few months, and I think, unfortunately, it's been one of those weird years where Patriots are picking over third overall. I mean, I don't feel like a lot has really changed over the last couple months. We've done a bunch of shows. We've done film breakdowns. We've talked to, the national pundits. Everybody's weighed in. We did all the positional previews. I feel like we've covered this draft, every angle of it. But it seems like the consensus right now, Paul, is that Drake May is there. The Patriots should take Drake May. I think the thinking people or the fans, that anybody who pays attention to stuff now, seems like everybody's on the Drake May train. Is that an apt way to put it?
So I would agree with you. I do think there is a loud, maybe not huge, portion of the fans that would like to trade down. But I don't know if you've ever heard this one before. If they don't love one of the quarterbacks, Mike, at 3, I think this is an opportunity to move down a little bit and maybe pick up extra picks. Have you guys heard anybody bring that up?
Is that a scenario that could happen?
That's a possibility, is it not?
Possibly.
Is that how it works?
No. I do think there are some people that think trading down. And why I say there are some people, every week I put a notebook up. Every week I'm sort of writing about all the different quarterbacks. And I'm getting a lot of people not always happy with the options.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I was sort of downplaying the J.J. McCarthy rumors, and I was getting killed for having J.J. McCarthy even on my mind. More recently, it was Drake May, and a lot of people are like, oh, you finally have the right guy in the picture this week. And then other people are like, no, the mechanics are a mess. You got to trade down. So I don't think it's a consensus. I think it's a consensus probably among us.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Well, Evan, I'm going to tee you up.
Yes, sir.
You did some film reviews, and look, if the thing that everybody thinks is going to happen happens, and tomorrow night the Patriots select Drake May, what does it mean? What does it mean for the Patriots if they bring Drake May in and he joins this team as the first-round pick tomorrow night?
Well, if you ask me, I think the first thing that I'll say tomorrow night, if that is the pick, is everybody's got to be patient. You got to be patient. He's not going to come in here and be Andrew Luck and turn them into a playoff team overnight. I don't think that. But the end goal or the eventual developmental track for him is Josh Allen, Justin Herbert level franchise quarterback. And that to me is worth third overall pick in the draft. That's what everybody's looking for. That's what all these teams that need a quarterback are searching for. So do I think that he's going to get there overnight? No. Does he need mechanical things that need to go better for him, footwork, that type of stuff? Absolutely. But I think that if you give him the time and you give him the right development, and I guess we can talk about if you trust their coaches or not to do that, but I do think they have two guys in Alex Van Pelt and in Ben McAdoo, especially AVP. He was a quarterback in the league. He's been coaching quarterbacks for 100 years. He's one of those guys that understands the nuances, the footwork, the training that needs to go into it, all that kind of stuff. So I do trust him a little bit to develop Drake May because of his background with quarterbacks specifically. So that's a long-winded answer, but I think the biggest thing that you have to realize is that it might not happen overnight. He might not start week 1. It might not be immediate. But by the time we're talking about year 2 and 3 with Drake May, I think we're going to be talking about a guy that the Patriots can really build around and move forward with.
Let's move on to Chris Cassidy. Chris, you were on the show throughout the year, you're wrapping up. But for you, just from your perspective, how would you feel? Drake May, I mean, where you sit right now?
Out of the 3 quarterbacks, the 3 top quarterbacks, I think where the Patriots stand with Drake May, that is your guy. I think that's your person you go to, the person you can select at 3. I think he'd be a great addition, help kind of build a team around him, build a culture around him. Again, Evan's telling the truth when he says might be a guy who comes in, doesn't jump in right away, but kind of gets his bearings, kind of watches Jacoby a little bit, watches Bailey, whoever it could be, but, trying to find some sort of comfort level before jumping right into the fold. I think it's going to be important for him.
pump some brakes a little bit on that. Now, so Tease, we've got to get everybody introduced. Tease Bauman did a great job sitting in for me in the host chair there last week. Appreciate that. And of course, you guys can call in 818. What is 818? Oh man, I'm still in California time. That's
shaking off the rust.
He made one trip to the West Coast and completely lost
Read the notes.
You were there 4 days.
What number was it? 855.
You were there 4 days.
We're here for an hour live to close off this Patriots draft countdown, which I think has been a lot of fun, and everybody's got a chance to contribute. But guys, I'm gonna open this up. You can start. But I mean, just if it isn't Drake May at 3rd overall, who do you think the pick is?
I think it's Jaden Daniels. I think it's just a flip-flop between the two. I hope it's a flip-flop, like whichever one's taken. I think we just take the other. That's what happens when you win the game in Christmas Eve. But yeah, either or. I think Jaden Daniels might be a little more pro-ready per se. He might beat out Jacoby. Hopefully he does at the number 3 pick. But Drake May, you got to sit him down a bit longer. But one of the two. Don't care who it is. Pick one of those two.
It just seems so simple, and that's like what. I mean, that's the easy answer, right? I mean, is there what aren't we thinking about, Paul? Like, I mean, what are we just assuming it's going to go to plan tomorrow night, or are we going to get there and be like, this came out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's probably Teese's answer. But if you want to play devil's advocate, it would be Elliott Wolf and the vast array of decision makers that the Patriots are going to rely on maybe are not in concert with who the best guy is. And if there are J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix backers in that room, then who's to say the move would be we can move down, we can add picks and get the guy we like just as much as Drake May or Jaden Daniels with Penix or McCarthy. It's not a move that I would necessarily be in favor of, but it's also not one that I hate. Guys know me. I'm not generally wishy-washy. I have pretty strong opinions. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Mostly I'm wrong. But this is one I'm kind of in the gray area. I can understand people that say they have a lot of needs. I don't think there's a huge – to me, the key here, if you want the extra picks, is I don't think there's a big difference between McCarthy and Penix in May and Daniels. If you feel like that, the trade down is not a bad option.
Yeah, I think we got to touch on McCarthy a little bit. And, I mean, I guess the question I was asking myself a little bit when I was on vacation is, is it just the fact of that all these rumors have come that McCarthy is going to go in the top 5? And that just doesn't seem like it fits to me. And I think there's a lot to like about J.J. McCarthy. I mean, I think maybe in another year where you were a team that didn't need a quarterback to come in right away and be the franchise guy and take the mantle, you have a guy maybe that you like right now, but you see down the road it's gonna, I don't hate J.J. McCarthy as a day 2 developmental guy, and I know that he's not that, right? But are you guys totally out on him no matter what, or is it just where he's supposed to go? Chris, you seem like you're jumping.
Yeah, no, I love this conversation. I really feel J.J. could fall. I mean, not that he will fall into the second day, but like this whole time at the beginning of the draft conversation was just talking about J.J. and where he kind of fall day 2, second round, third round type guy, more second round. But, the more you hear about it, everything kind of hyping him up, has a great pro day, kind of now he's in the top 5 pick range, barring trade conversations. But it's kind of amazing to me to like how fast it all happened.
It seems like every year this seems like something like this happens.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Someone creeps up.
I would. The biggest reason why I've been so anti J.J. McCarthy is that I'm always wary of the late riser. The guy that hasn't played an actual down of padded football in 6 months that all of a sudden now is a top 5 pick. And the last time that I remember this sort of rise for a quarterback was Zach Wilson. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily going to bust out as hard as Zach Wilson did, but those types of guys that interview well, that have great pro days, that look good in the suit, that like do all those types of things and don't actually do anything on film or on a football field to change your mind, but it's all about these meetings and these closed door conversations that we're not privy to. Those guys win front offices over, and more times than not, they get them fired. And it's the guys like Jaden Daniels, it's Drake May, those guys that have been, these two guys are really good for the whole thing. Going back to the fall, Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman Trophy. There was no question whether or not Jaden Daniels was going to be in this conversation. Drake May was in this conversation since the start of 2022.
Yep.
And then you have this guy come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're talking about J.J. McCarthy in the same tier, and I'm always wary of that guy.
Yeah. And I would just say, to back up Evan's point, Jaden Daniels rose during the course of the football season with a great season on the field. He ended the season as a potential top 5 pick. J.J. McCarthy rose kind of once the season ended.
Can I ask you a question,
like
Paul?
Zach Wilson and Mac Jones.
I specifically you, like, does it mean anything that the kids lost like 3 games since high school? Does that mean anything, like, when you're looking at a quarterback?
I think it means something. I think the guy, that's what you're banking on, is that this guy has that quality, that people can't. It's kind of an intangible. He's a good leader. People follow him. He's around. I don't think it's always a coincidence when a player is always on winning teams. Now, that said, he's a highly regarded NFL prospect. I'm going to guess his high school team was pretty good because of him.
Well, he also went to IMG.
No, I understand that, but he also won before he went. He won a state championship before he went to IMG. But, like, when you're that talented, you lift a team, by yourself. It's like, Drake May played for Josh McCown, right? No, is that the right guy?
Yep.
Drake. It was Drake May,
Yep,
right?
yep.
How do you think that high school team was? It was probably pretty good.
Yeah.
I just feel like, yes, I do think it means something, but I don't get wrapped up in he was 27-1 at Michigan, so that's the guy you have to pick.
That's another thing that I'm always super wary of, because we have so much evidence that it doesn't matter. Most of the time, the only guy that you can say one in college, one in the pros recently is Joe Burrow. And I just think Joe Burrow's really good. I don't think you can really put those two on the same tier. Like, I don't think that they're talent-wise that J.J. McCarthy is in the same conversation as a Joe Burrow. So you look at guys, that have had that winning intangible, like a Baker Mayfield. Everybody talked about Baker like that he was this leader that people gravitate. How did that work out for Cleveland?
He went into Ohio State and put the flag in.
I kind of compare it too to Trevor Lawrence. Not that they had similar college careers, but like how Trevor Lawrence came in. I mean, he was always a winner, didn't lose a lot, and that was emphasized in his draft stock as well.
Very similar numbers, absolutely.
Right, and I think Trevor Lawrence, he's been okay in Jacksonville. He hasn't been eye popping though, you know. And that winning mentality.
I actually think there's a chance that sometimes, depending on how those guys unfold, that it can be a detriment, because I don't care how good you are, you're going to lose games in the NFL. Can you handle it?
Yeah.
Now, I think Trevor Lawrence has handled it really well. I wouldn't say that's derailed his career, but you don't know. Sometimes, the football adversity and how guys handle it. J.J. McCarthy hasn't had a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can go the other way.
Go ahead.
That's the big thing too. You haven't really seen J.J. McCarthy be down 15 points and lead the team back. I mean, he's on a completely stacked Michigan team, weapons all around. I think there's a chance that he's for draft night, Will Levis 2.0, and he's sitting around for a while, and it was a big smoke screen season.
I mean,
I don't think there's much of a chance of that.
Not a huge drop,
I don't think he can
but
possibly get past 11.
Really,
I think that there's a chance that, like what Paul just said, that it's like a Mac Jones type of situation where
they fall the Vikings
to the teens, 11, 12, 13, that range, and he goes there instead of going 3, which is exactly what happened to Mac.
Someone could trade up to 4 with Arizona and take him. It could go 1, 2, 3, 4, or someone can trade, somewhere between 5 and 10. Atlanta, I think, is in there. They're probably open for business. I don't. If there's no trades, I can't imagine Minnesota doesn't take a quarterback.
Yeah. It's just an interesting contrast, because we spent, we talk a lot about when they drafted Mac, and we talked about the talent that was around Mac. And Tease, you just kind of mentioned the Michigan talent, which I think very good. But would you guys put it in the same boat as LSU or Alabama in those years when they had
not
really
the
high round guys?
Talent,
different kind of talent, but yes, and I agree. Evan just started to say it. You don't have the dynamic nature of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase on the outside, but they're going to be up there among the most drafted players in recent memory, right?
Yeah, they
Alabama and the rest of those.
They just build the team a little bit more old school. They have great defense, great line play, great running backs. Like that. Their team is just not built with the 5-star receiver recruits and things like that. Roman Wilson's a really good player. Like that, he's going to be a day 2 pick,
Chase.
But he's not. He's not that. No. And that's, I think, one thing that the Mac PTSD has definitely I've been wary of this process is Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., loaded cast, Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix has 6 guys that are going to be drafted on offense around him. And 5 in the top 100? And he's the 6th in the top 100. And Dylan Johnson, his running back, is going to get drafted too. So you have 2 tackles that are going to get drafted, 1 in the first round, 1 on day 2. You have 3 receivers that are going to get drafted, 1 in the top 10. And then you have a running back that's probably going to be like a mid to late day 3 pick. All going from you could literally draft the Washington offense and have a pretty good NFL offense just with the talent that went to that school. And he would just happen to be the trigger man in the middle of all of it.
You guys remember Zach Mettenberger from LSU?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's
there you go.
That's how I fell for Zach Mettenberger.
Yeah.
Paul, what year was that?
Probably like 10 years ago.
20.
10.
10,
But
11,
it was
that's what I
like-
was going to say, yeah.
I think it was like at LSU, it was
12.
like the Jarvis Landry maybe era with OBJ.
Oh, right. Yeah, those
and
two.
Jeremy Hill.
Oh, had a cup of
Real-
coffee here, right?
Yeah, really good. He tore his ACL early in the season. Yeah,
Won the Super Bowl that year.
Remember that?
really good running back. That team was loaded, and I was like, this quarterback, he's pretty good.
That's how it
Turned out he wasn't.
Evan, you mentioned Michael Penix, and I
Yes.
just, we've talked about kind of the high round guys, and we feel like it could be May and McCarthy lurking, but, Penix, Nix, we talked a lot about these guys. Just generally, though, how do you feel about a draft strategy for the Patriots where they wait till day 2 for a quarterback? Like, do you think that makes sense right now for where they are, what they need? Is that going to move the needle if they draft a Bo Nix, a Michael Penix, early day 2? I mean, assuming I've seen plenty saying Penix ain't getting out of the first round, but just getting past the first year.
I would put Nix in that category too. Like I think there's a chance that Nix goes in the first round also, like late, maybe in the 20s. But if you're one of these teams that doesn't get the quarterback the first time around, are you really waiting all the way to your pick in the second round for him to still be there? I don't know. So really, you're talking about Spencer Rattler, as really the only guy that I would put as like a day 2 grade.
Even worth it? Is it even worth it for the Patriots?
I don't think so. I mean, Spencer Rattler's we were talking about this on PU yesterday, I think. Spencer Rattler's great for a team that has an aging veteran quarterback that's going to hold the starting job like the Jets, that just want to get the developmental guy in the building and put him behind Aaron Rodgers, and maybe he's Jordan Love. Maybe it turns out that it works out in a couple of years that he's a good quarterback for them after Rodgers retires. For the team like the Patriots, I don't see any of these guys making much sense, and then you really start to get into day 3, which is Michael Pratt and Joe Milton and all those guys, and now we're really talking about backups.
Like, what's the point? You got Bailey Zappi, right? Like, you need to draft one of those guys to like.
No, that's why I'm not a huge fan of like the whole double dip, because everybody points to Washington. Yeah, their bonus baby got hurt, and they needed the 4th rounder to come in, right?
Yeah.
Like, and hats off to them. They picked a guy in the 4th round who turned out to be a really good player for a 4th round pick in Kirk Cousins. I just don't think that that's overly realistic to just, okay, so like you said, it's Bailey Zappi. More often than not, that's your 4th round pick quarterback, a guy who can play, but he's not ever going to be your starter. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't draft. I would draft a quarterback every year.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily in favor of drafting 2 in a year.
Yeah, I think a guy like Rattler, the comparison I've been using is Gardner Minshew. Similar, ballsy, good arm talent, can move around a little bit. But is he ever, to Paul's point, is he ever going to be your quarterback? Is that ever going to be the guy that we got Gardner Minshew? Like, no, that's not going to be how it
and
is.
like it's like when you take, like fans, I think have this notion we do it every year, and it's going to happen again when we do our draft shows on say like Friday and Saturday. Well, we needed a quarterback, a tackle, and a wide receiver, and we got them with the first 3 picks. We filled all our needs. No, you didn't. You picked guys that played the positions that you feel like are needs. Mm-hmm. We'll find out if you filled any of the needs.
Yeah.
When the guys get to play, like, penciling in a tackle in the 5th round doesn't fill your left tackle need. Now it might be Michael Wenu. It might be Clint Oldenburg.
That's one of the biggest things I've taken
gonna say
away
Justin Herron.
from being in this job.
with
Like,
him.
I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, and it's smart, and it's probably mostly taken from you. Was like, I think as more of a fan, you look at those day 3 picks and you're like, oh boy, it's easy to get excited. Where I think I've gotten a little bit more measured in my response to all right, well, we'll see. These guys everybody's a lottery ticket, but those guys especially.
In fairness, I will say there are a lot of good offensive linemen that get taken in day 3. Like, I think that's a spot where, and it was more so when Dante was here, because they had the old program that Bill had in Cleveland. He called it the offensive lineman development program with Pat Hill. Remember Pat Hill, the old Fresno State coach who was on those Brown staffs? That was basically what he was tasked with. We're going to give you a bunch of young, raw linemen, and you're going to make them NFL players. And they had success doing that. Dante was fantastic at it. And that's why you had guys like Brandon Gorin and Tom Ashworth. And, it wasn't always Matt Light and Nate Solder and Nick Kazzer that were, first 3-round picks. They had a lot of undrafted free agents that just sort of bided their time,
Dan
and eventually
Connolly.
they needed to, when they needed to play, they were
Captain
ready.
Dave.
Because they were very well schooled.
Yeah, I mean, they had a line at one point that was Marcus Cannon, right? 6th-round pick, I think, 5th or 6th-round pick.
I would just say
He had the cancer issue.
Little asterisk on him because he would have been a higher
Shaq Mason.
pick. Shaq Mason, mid-round pick.
Mid-round
absolutely.
pick that wasn't invited to the combine. David Andrews, UDFA.
Undrafted.
Joe Tooney, 3rd-round pick. And they had a fantastic line, out of those guys. Yeah. And Nate Solder was the left tackle, and he was the 1st-round pick, and he might have been the worst out of the group.
That group.
I think to your point too, Paul, like throughout the years when they had a pinch, they always seem to have a guy able to step in. Russ Hochstein, they always seem to have a guy
Ryan Wendell
ready to step in.
There's the long list of guys. I go back 100 years. When Chris wasn't even around yet.
Very true.
Like Greg Robinson Randall. There's
totally know who that is.
There's names that you go way back, and they plugged them in, and they were fine. I'm not telling you they were as good as Shaq Mason and Joe Tooney. Stephen Neal, the ultimate example of this. The guy who didn't even play football.
I'm gonna steal another Paul take and just play the other side for just a second.
Okay.
And I think the biggest thing that I look at with this draft and what the Patriots should do at the top, Paul, you've always said this about Brady. He made the line better.
Yeah.
He made the line better. And I know we talk about it with Brady because of the quick release and the pocket awareness and the things that he would do in the pocket with his mobility. But it doesn't always need to be just that. Like, you can make the line better by being Jaden Daniels and getting the heck out of Dodge when there's pressure around. You can be better for your offensive line like Drake May does, which is the subtle movements in the pocket where he knows the pressure is coming from this direction and he'll just kind of subtly move to his right, and he has the arm talent to then flick it back to his left and still get it there. Those are the little things that you see these quarterbacks do where all of a sudden Cole Strange looks a little bit better. City So looks a little bit better. And you're like, oh, the tackle situation, no, we can work with this. This isn't as bad as we thought it was. Yeah. And that's why the quarterback can change everything.
Yeah. And the flip side of that is maybe you do need to pick better, more talented, quote-unquote, offensive linemen because you don't have that luxury of having a guy who is going to make those guys better.
Yeah. Well, Paul, you mentioned quarterback, tackle, wide receiver, and I think that's kind of been the common refrain here as we get down. Like, what order? I mean, for me, and I think a lot of others, it's get the quarterback, get that tackle, and then there's, wide receivers that you can kind of supplement. But my question for the panel, though, is what's the first position taken outside of those 3 position groups? And maybe it comes earlier, but just what position group could you see being drafted? Maybe even, in the 1st or 2nd round. I don't want to get crazy, but what's the first position group outside of that group that you think gets taken? Tease.
I think it's edge. I think there's just a lot of great players there, like kind of, as we said, round 3, round 4 guys, and I think that might be a moment where take the best player that's on the board. And I've seen a lot of the mocks, you got some of the Penn State guys there. I don't know, it just seems like, hey, are we going to do a dart throw or hey, this guy's a really good prospect that slipped, and you can never have too many edge guys. So I'm going with the edge position.
Yeah.
You a big Chop Robinson fan?
I was just about to say, to agree with Tease there, I think the edge position is so depth in this draft, and I'm a big Chop Robinson guy. As Evan mentioned,
have to take him at 34 if he's still there.
I know. I really like Chop though. I think he has a lot to show. And if you don't go in one of those 3,
you got a spot.
Areas.
I agree. I think edge rusher Matthew Judon, last year of his contract, we don't know if he's going to be around. Josh Uche signed a 1-year deal, so you don't know what he's going to. You start to look at. Early on in the draft, I think they need to hit the immediate holes that we've been discussing for 6 months. But you start to talk about early day 3, we're getting into, okay, what are the holes on the 2025 roster? And you have to think about, the 2-year depth chart of what this looks like. And if Judon's not there, if Uche is not there, those are spots that maybe you need to fill. A couple names, Gabriel Murphy from UCLA is a guy that I've really liked in this process. He's, the other guy to Latu Latu on the other side. He's one of those guys that can move around a little bit, though. He can rush over the guard or center in line. He can rush from the outside, and he has experience doing that. So that's a really, Patriot type of thing at that spot. You also look at, the kid from Kansas, Austin Booker, who I think is going to be a really good pro, but is super young and raw. You put him in that room. You give Joe Kim and DeMarcus Covington a year with him. He learns under Matthew Judon. Maybe next year, Austin Booker is now all of a sudden a breakout player for you. Those are the types of guys that I would look at. Two total polar opposites, because Murphy's a little bit older and Booker is one of the youngest players in the draft, if not the youngest player in the draft. So I would look more of Booker, who they had in for a visit, for that exact reason. Let him develop behind the scenes. He doesn't have to play this year at that spot, so you allow him to develop a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with these guys on edge. I'm going to go with defensive back. I mean, I don't know if it's a corner or a safety. I think it's going to be interesting to see how. There's a couple of things defensively that I'm sort of curious about, but special teams wise, if the changes to the kickoff rules are going to change the sort of makeup of some of those players, like you're going to need bigger players, because it's the kick return has kind of become more of a running play.
Yep.
That's what Bill was saying.
Yeah. And that's what I'm sort of jumping off on. He didn't really take it that far. Like, you're going to need more linebackers. But I feel like Jonathan Jones, he's sort of kind of getting to that area where you're wondering, when's the drop-off going to come. Mm-hmm. We talked about the lack of a true center fielder. Yep. They have a bunch of good players at safety that are all kind of similar. So I think they need some depth in the secondary.
It's a good pull, Paul, because there's a lot of really good players in this draft for those two spots, and that's not always common. It's a really deep slot corner draft in particular. It starts with your boy
Miles Bryant.
It starts with your boy Sandstrill, right? Like, he's probably the top of the board, but
it's my boy.
Everett.
Well, that too. Max Melton from Rutgers, another one of those guys that's probably going to be a nickel in the league. Yep. That's the top of the board, but it goes pretty deep in rounds, I would say 2 through 4, specifically guys that the NFL projects to play inside slot. Then you have center fielders too. Kalen Bullock is my guy from USC. You have different guys that can play up top. Cam Kitchens from Miami. I've been looking for the Deron Harmon for the Patriots.
Center fielder.
Literally since Deron Harmon left. And every year we get in the draft, and it's 17 box safeties. It's 17 Kyle Duggars. It's guys that are playing a ton of split safety zone because that's what they play in college. They play quarters because they don't want to give up the big plays. This draft is one of the unique drafts where there's true post middle of the field safeties. And I just have to wonder, to complete it, to put it all together, do they take one of those guys in the 3rd or 4th round, and now all of a sudden the secondary really fits the pieces, the puzzle pieces really fit together back there?
Yeah, I think it's we always talk about that. One other position, though, I just want to mention, and I love what you guys said about edge. I totally agree with that. But I want to talk about running back too, because I think running back's a position that
this team's got a lot of holes.
You got to need, but it's everyone. You talk about how good it would line up if you're able to get quarterback, tackle, and those kind of positions line up with where their picks are. And they might have to trade back up into the first if they really wanted one of those tackles. But it just feels like these like round 3, 4, 5 running backs. You don't have to overextend yourself. They're not going to be an every down kind of workhorse, but you could get a guy in the 4th round that could step in. And I mean, is this kind of a need that we're not talking enough about, maybe running back?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's
Stevenson in his last year.
I think it's a need, but I mean, we've talked about before, running back is just such a position where like that could be a UDFA guy. 6th round. I don't know. I just feel like there are other holes in this team. If you're talking 5th round and you pass up on the lineman, I think that's where you take the lineman. I don't think like running back's not.
But I mean, would you take a second tackle over a running back? Like is it that bad?
It could be. I just think like linemen in general just get injured so much. I just think
this is where I kind of feel, and I understand what everybody's saying. I don't necessarily disagree with any of the thoughts that you guys are all having about all the different positions. And Evan succinctly put it, like they can't really go wrong. They have a need at almost every spot. But I think that you have to try to stay away from, we need to fill all these needs right away. Like, we need stars at every spot. Like, at some point, and I don't know where that is, I'm even going in the second round, and I've kind of made a change because philosophically I was sort of thinking quarterback, tackle, wide receiver. And I've kind of changed. And Evan started this a little bit, got me thinking about it, and one of the rare times he's changed my view on something.
Wow.
Okay, so hats off to you, Evan.
No, I'm not
did
even
it.
insulted. I'm proud.
I actually answered, and we did some of the questions, and we all answered some of the things, and I went quarterback, wide receiver, because I'm not sure the value at tackle is as high as wide receiver once you get to, like, let's say 35.
Yeah.
And if I understand they need a tackle, and I'm not dismissing. This is not one of my do your offensive line in your own time sort of dismissals. I'm not doing that. I understand how important it is that they find a tackle, but you can't force it. And I think that you get in trouble when you say, well, I have a tackle on my board at 34, but I haven't rated as the 85th best player in the draft. And I have about 8 wide receivers between 34 and 85. I got to take one of those wide receivers. The same is true, to Tisa's point about running back. If the running back is a good player and you feel like the value is there, take him. Because I agree with Evan. I think you need a running back. You do. But I don't have to have a tackle because, well, I need a tackle. You have to try to stay somewhat close to your board.
Yeah, I think we probably it seems like, at least internally, based on what Elliot Wolf said last week, that like they might believe in their tackles a little bit more than we all do.
Do you think that was true?
I don't know. I mean, I don't love the thought of Chucks, who I'm still working on.
Chooks. It's actually Chooks.
I got confirmation. I asked him.
It's Chooks.
I asked him.
Chooks.
It's Chooks.
You keep changing it on me. I can't. keep track
That's
of
my
it.
fault. It's Chooks.
Chooks.
I'll take the
Or
responsibility
a
for
fork
that.
or 4.
No, just say
Core
Chooks.
four.
Think about this though. We're going. Is this draft 4?
Aruaria.
Is this draft 4 or 5 for us? Like
Aruaria.
we've had CeeDee Lamb, we've had Olave,
this
like
is
all these
Jesus.
receivers. We've just missed
Yeah.
on. Like we keep whiffing and missing on receivers, and now we're at 34. We could potentially go back up and get one in the first round. Like let's make the sexy pick.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, like Evan's saying, if it was Drake May, probably have to sift for a little bit. But you go and get a wide receiver there, like you want him in
Right,
there
like,
day
I mean,
one.
Yeah.
If you have and I'm just throwing names out, I'm not exactly sure where these guys are all. Like if you had like Troy Franklin or the kid from Houston, Paul, like who do you have ranked higher?
Yeah.
Patrick Paul?
Yeah,
Yep,
just
you
Patrick
got it.
Paul.
Right? Look at me, tackle.
Look at you.
Yeah.
If you had those two guys and they're ranked similarly, right? By all means, if you feel like you need the tackle more, take them. But if you have one of those guys significantly ahead of the other, I think you just want right now. I think the most important thing for Elliot Wolf and the rest of that brain trust is to find good football players,
Yeah.
regardless of position.
It's a shallow tackle class. Yeah, it's not very deep at that position. It's very top heavy.
Top heavy, yeah.
There's a bunch of really good tackles that are going to go in the top 50, but Patrick Paul is one of those guys that the tackle tax, he might go much higher.
I think he's going to get taken higher than probably should.
He's probably a third round value in most drafts, but the drop off from Patrick Paul to the next wave of tackles is so significant that I think that he's an early second round guy, simply because of the way the board is going to fall. So, you're looking, I was listening to Jeremiah a little bit yesterday, Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, and he said that everybody's trading up for a tackle. Like there's so many tackles that are going in that first round that everybody wants, because then it's the cupboard's bare. Once the parade goes by, it's over. And so that's, I think, a something that to keep in mind with how they go about this order of operations. The tackle class might drop off so hard after 34 that they might have to take the tackle there.
Yeah, and the Patriots are one of many teams probably that we're going to try to trade back up. If that was, it seems like a lot of teams would be interested.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go back to Paul's point about the wide receivers. Like, if you can get to that second, third round, and if you wanted to go quarterback, wide receiver, again, how important the offensive tackle position is for the Patriots, like, it's huge. But you also need those playmakers at wide receiver. You don't have, again, I'm going to say eye-popping again, but you don't have that eye-popping playmaker in the wide receiver core right now outside of Demario Douglas, who is arguably sitting at your third slot wide receiver. And, I mean, you have the guys like Xavier Legette and Ricky Pearsall that could fall the second, third round maybe. And, I mean, you have picks in rounds 2 and 3. I think those are two guys you could possibly, if they're on the board. I doubt that they're both there. I think they're both second-round guys, but
Somebody's got to fall, Chris. I mean,
Right.
that's and then like you talk about the edge players. I mean, that's Chop Robinson. Like, I mean, that's if there is a run on the tackles and everybody's trading up to get tackles, some position is going to get pushed down. But another thing I actually did, I printed this out and
I'm happy that you printed that out.
yeah, well, did you?
I
did you-
saw that
yeah?
today,
Did you
Mike.
like that?
I did.
I thought it was an interesting. So Sanford, Kentucky wrote in and actually, and we'll get to some emails here in the last half hour. But Sam, thanks for the email asking about the Schefter's tweet with the first round hit rate, which I have right here. No, I printed it big enough that you can
Imagine,
maybe
not much of a difference between tackle and quarterback in terms of hits.
Yeah, that's
Huh.
that's
Who would have thunk it?
if only there was a center available in the top 10. I mean, you
Right.
can't miss 92%. But we talked about this a lot, Paul, on PU and stuff, and I just thought it was interesting. And I've seen other numbers. I guess it always depends on what the criteria.
Depends on who
is,
the
right?
evaluator is,
Like
and
when-
I will submit their criteria was simply earned a second contract with original team, which I think is
Stinks.
definitely flawed.
Yeah.
Definitely flawed.
Not
but
a great way to do it.
It's I totally agree.
Okay.
However, I think it's not a great way to do it for all of the positions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Especially
yeah.
wide receiver.
like
but
I don't think a tackle is less likely to get a second contract if he stinks than a quarterback is.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
so.
But somebody.
It's a flawed. I think it's flawed, but it's flawed the same for all positions.
Yeah.
I just think that wide receiver is at the bottom of that list. I think.
Yeah, 27%.
And a couple of the recent, you got guys that get traded. You got guys that don't.
Right.
This is
So
the
AJ
this
Brown
is-
doesn't count as a
This
hit.
is the major flaw
Right.
with this system.
You got
AJ
guys,
Brown didn't get a second
Yeah.
contract
right.
with his team.
You get guys that have the 5th-year option, so like they're buying time with that. Like so, like what's the? I don't know.
I basically you can't get more of a hit on a first round pick. I mean, on a pick than AJ Brown, and he didn't get a second contract with his team.
Yeah.
So he counts as a miss.
Yes.
That's the flaw in that system.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is center as top at 92%. Of course, that's
11 out
11
of 12.
out of 12. So not a high amount of numbers. I mean, the edges are 104 and they're 44%. But I don't know. I thought this was a good kind of point of contention. But I mean, really, it's quarterback. It seems like it's 50-50, and it's probably more than that. I think the other numbers.
But
we
you're
talked was
looking at
60.
them all, and they're all roughly the same.
Yeah.
Is my point? Like there's tackles are 64, quarterbacks are 56, right?
Yeah.
Like what's the difference really?
Tackles 59. 59.
59. I thought it was
59.
54.
Yeah, 59.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more. But
A little
I think
bit, little
point-
bit higher at tackle.
The point does stand. I mean, the last thing I think I saw was that quarterbacks were like 60, which was better. But again, what was the
and the other
criteria?
part of that too is like the quarterback is like harder because it's much more of an investment.
Right.
So, you got to be really sure to get that second contract. Whereas a tackle, let's say a tackle's okay, you can re-sign him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to break the bank if he's just okay. I mean, it'll break the bank if he's a pro, if he's an all-pro, you
Right.
got to pay for that.
And then look at the 2021 quarterback class where
Like, did Nate Solder get a second contract with the Patriots? I think he did.
I think he
I
must
thought he
have.
got a
he did.
small. He got
Yeah.
a small extension.
Yeah.
before you went to the Giants.
Yeah. They kind of strung him along a little bit.
Like that counts as a hit.
Yeah. Well, it was a good,
Don't pick on
good
Nate
topic,
Solder.
and I appreciate Sam writing in because I was thinking the same thing. So let's take a few emails here. Actually, you know what? We have a call. Let's
Look at
take
you.
that. Sorry.
Deuce, get
Remember
that.
how to use the mouse?
Get that mouse. Get that mouse ready. I don't know
I'm
if they use them
struggling.
differently in California, but let's see.
Deuce, you need to.
I
you need-
can't.
My guess is
818.
that mouse is not
818.
connected to that. Oh, okay, there we go.
There it
we
is.
really need to get Deuce some
Really?
sleep. I think the jet
818.
lag is.
All right, we got Tyler from Florida.
Did
Hey,
you
Tyler.
actually walk back?
He might have.
Hey,
Thanks for calling, Tyler. What's going on?
so my idea was the Chargers might want to trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. because the Cardinals are definitely taking him, if not. So if we could get their first and second rounder, we could take like Amarius Mims in the second and Vlad McConkey, and then take Drake May in the first.
Yeah. Trade scenario for trading up. What do you think of that, Evan?
I would be
Thanks, Tyler.
very, very worried that some team would trade into 4 with Arizona and take Drake May.
Absolutely.
So I would not do that. For that.
That
reason.
opens the door for the more value to that. Absolutely. And so the Chargers are trading from 5 to 3, and they're giving you a first and a second.
Well, I guess he's saying a pick swap, right? and then
Oh, okay.
and then
With an
the-
additional.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
With
There's
the
always so
additional
much
pick.
confusion in that.
yeah, but
if it's just a pick swap and you're getting a second, yeah, that's plausible.
if Drake May is your guy, you have to take Drake May at 3.
It's also if like teams are selling the farm for this player, shouldn't you want that player?
Can I ask another question? And this is totally up to you guys. You guys are the draft experts, and you guys have been in the
Pundits.
You guys are in the dark
Mocking.
room. Is Marvin Harrison worth trading up for?
I would say no in my book. I
Like
mean,
if you're the Chargers and you want Marvin Harrison, but Arizona takes him, can't you just take Malik Neighbors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's worth trading up for in this draft because of how much talent there is at that position in this draft, but he is. I mean, he's the number 1 receiver in the class.
Yeah,
There's no question about that.
Well, I think Daniel Jeremiah disagrees, but
I think that's
I'm not,
crazy.
I'm not even arguing that
Yeah.
that he's not the number 1. I think he is the number 1 guy. I'm just saying, like, if you're the Chargers, and do I have to give up resources to go up and get
I'm with
a
Paul.
wide
No,
receiver
I
who
agree with that
some people
point.
don't even think is the number 1 wide receiver?
I think that not having Marv as wide receiver 1 in this class is classic prospect fatigue. Like, absolutely classic prospect fatigue. There's no way that you can. Malik Neighbors is a great talent. Adunze is a great talent. Those guys are not Marvin Harrison. Like, Marvin Harrison to me is in the same tiers as like when Jamar Chase came into the draft, or going back a ways. I think the big comparison for a lot of people is AJ Green, like Julio Jones, like those types of talents. Like that's Marvin Harrison. I think Neighbors is maybe a little bit a notch below that. But I agree with you that I wouldn't give up the bag to trade up for getting Marvin Harrison,
and it
when
wouldn't.
you could
I
just
mean,
get
it wouldn't
Malik
cost them
Neighbors.
that much to move up 2 spots. But I'm just like, I don't know why you would pay anything to move up. Not because I'm anti-Harrison, but I think a lot of Neighbors.
yeah, me too.
And I just think, okay, I'd rather have Harrison, but I'll take Neighbors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or a Dunze.
And my 2nd round pick.
Yeah,
Eh,
I'm with you on that.
Evan, you love comps. We got email from Ford in Savannah, Georgia. One comp for May I haven't really heard was Ben Roethlisberger. Both big, hard to bring down, and great arms. Maybe probably a little more shifty, with possibly a better arm. But I always thought Big Ben was a little underrated, and we'd be happy to have a QB of that pedigree.
Yeah,
What do you guys think?
I've not to jump on the emailer. I've seen that comp a lot.
Yeah.
Big Ben is obviously like Big Ben's a Hall of Famer. So like if Drake May ends up being as good as Big Ben, then the Patriots have done great. I think Big Ben was different. Now, my memory of Big Ben is probably more loafy, out of shape.
Yeah,
Big Ben,
You think in the end.
yeah,
With
uh,
walking
more
boot,
so than
the-
than
He
The
could,
ice
he
man.
could
That's my
run
vision
when he
of Ben
came into the
Roethlisberger.
league.
Yeah, I remember, him coming into the league and obviously playing the Patriots in the playoffs and stuff like that. But Paula and you, Deuce, would have a better memory of like rookie, young Big Ben. But I think Drake May is a little bit more nimble
More athletic.
Yeah.
I
than
agree.
than
I
Ben.
agree.
I
was.
think more like Cam Newton than Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I see a lot of Allen and Herbert, certainly. I see a lot of Jordan Love in him as well, if you want to, go more of like the developmental comp.
That's a good one, Evan. 'Cause that was the biggest thing that stood out to me in Green Bay when we were watching him and it's kind of a Drake May similar thing where it's just inconsistency. It was like, a couple plays, you'd be like, holy crap, Jordan Love is like just torching the Patriots right now. And then all of a sudden it'd be like a duck. And you'd be, what the hell is going on? That kind of inconsistency.
That goes back to the be patient thing Evan said,
Yeah.
though, because he first hit the field and people were like, what are you doing?
I just have this fear of preseason game number 1 where, little play action, little dump in the flat, and he throws it like over the guy's head. Because he's inaccurate at times.
Yeah.
Like he's a little loose,
Yeah.
with his mechanics and
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think there's going to be some easy throws, quote unquote, that he misses, and people are going to freak the bleep out.
Yeah, Kurt Warner likes to call them boring throws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the boring throws are often the ones that
That
he
he
misses.
can't make.
He's like one of those guys, like a
like the
basketball
opposite of
player
Mac.
that can like hit a 3 with a guy in his face,
Yeah.
but then when he has the wide
Yeah.
open 3, he
Right.
bricks it.
Yeah, he's a 52% three-point shooter who shoots 62% from the line.
Yeah, but you also look at him, and I actually have the opposite fear, probably because I'm a Drake May guy.
I love Drake, man.
I think we're going to get into training camp with Drake May and Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi, and we're going to be like, "You're not going to start the kid." Like you're gonna play these you're gonna play these other guys because Drake May is gonna get out there and yeah, he's gonna have some ducks and he's gonna have some misses, but he's also gonna throw a 50-yard bomb off his back foot, and we're gonna be like, so we're going with the other guy here.
Thornton's gonna catch it.
And that's to my original
in all
point.
fairness, this is a media corps who went gaga over Mac Jones doing this in practice.
So that's my other point. My thing with the preseason is, well, what if he freaking is awesome? Like then what do you do? And C.J. Stroud wasn't awesome. C.J. Stroud threw a pick right to Jalen Mills on his first drive.
Do you
of the
remember
preseason.
how he looked in that game?
Yeah,
No
terrible.
bueno.
If you had said to me that day that this guy is going to lead his team to the playoffs, they're going to go to the playoffs because of him,
And win a game.
I would have said you were insane based on that. That just shows you how little preseason football matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to my original point when I started the show, the Patriots, in my mind, need to stick to their guns. Like, if they are planning on him sitting and developing him the Mahomes way, just because he has a great preseason game and the fans are clamoring for it, you got to stick with the plan. Now, maybe the plan does expedite a little bit. Like, maybe he's in there by week 8 or 9 instead of year 2. But you can't just change everything just because he had a great preseason game or a great joint practice or something like
I agree.
that.
You have a plan. You have conviction, just like the pick. You have conviction in the players that you're taking. You have a plan. You stick to it.
I have a question regarding the second round pick.
Okay.
Or just in general, do you think there's a big trade? Is a trade on the option?
Hold that. Let's pause
Trade
that
up,
for 1
up
second.
into the first round,
or just for a vet?
Let me.
What I love.
Well, let me read
love
this.
a trade up into the first round.
Yeah.
I think everybody would, yeah.
Maybe take away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Two picks.
Because this is one
Yes.
thing, we're kind of summing everything up here. We're trying to in the last episode, but T brings up a great point. I was just about to tee it up with a question from Ron in Conway, New Hampshire. What's the possibility of us working out some type of draft day deal to get Ayuk or A.J. Brown? I think this is another, big piece of this draft that people have been kind of talking about a little bit. You just said it again, Tease. I mean, what do you guys think? Is there a chance the Patriots make one of those kind of splash moves? I mean, A.J. Brown seems like it's all based on his Instagram, like who he was following and stuff.
I would
which
put
seems
the
crazy,
A.J. Brown
but-
at less than 1%.
Yeah, me too.
Like it's,
But Ayuk.
I'm not a big
Clip
cap.
that.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not.
was gonna say.
No, you know, I'm
Write that
not a
down.
big cap space guy.
Yeah.
It's like a $48 million
Oh.
dead cap hit
Yeah, that's
for
too
the
much.
Eagles. It doesn't make any sense for them to trade him this year. Next year,
Stephon
he's-
Diggs has
he's
a
gone.
big dead cap hit too, and they still did it. So if there's an
$20 million difference.
right, but if there's enough angry people in the
and
building,
Diggs
at
was
the,
the
guy,
biggest non-quarterback dead cap hit in history.
Yeah.
and it's a $20 million gap.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I would say no. To Paul's point, I know it was a little tongue in cheek about consolidating picks, but the trade from 34 that gets kicked around is 34. Their 4th round pick and then the extra 6th round pick that they got for Mac Jones would get you enough to move up into the 20s for one of these tackles, 80 Mitchell, something along those lines.
Love it. 3 for 1.
Yeah.
Love it.
But now you are giving up 3 picks. Now the 6th round pick to all of us, I think, is like
Right.
do that on your own time.
Right.
But the 4th round pick's a value. That's basically a top 100 pick.
Sure.
And so that's a little bit more valuable. But if you feel really, really good about A.D. Mitchell, Tyler Guyton, Amarius Mims, one of those players that's going to go there, then you do it.
Yeah, the Brown thing also, more importantly than the cap hit, because you guys know I'm not being disingenuous. I don't care about the cap hit. Anybody can be traded. He doesn't make that much money this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very affordable number this year. Next year is when they have their out. It's kind of like Daniel Jones with the Giants. Everybody's, Daniel Jones probably will have every opportunity to be the Giants quarterback again in 24 because the decision really to cut ties is next year. And I think it's the same with A.J. Brown. If you look at it, now he put Tom Brady on his avatar and people lost their minds.
Because he's his favorite player.
Right.
Has been since he
doesn't play
and I'm
here
not dismissing.
anymore.
Listen, I'm not dismissing the whole. Yeah, well, that's the other thing is the
He's been-
Patriots are his favorite team.
Yes.
Not after last year.
Probably not anymore.
Well, in 2019 they were, and they still didn't draft him.
Right, and he was devastated.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
gotten over it.
It's
took
been a
4
couple of years where A.J. Brown's kind of had this back and forth with the Eagles and possible trade conversations. And
Well,
I
and
mean-
the jumping off point was the extension for Smith.
Right.
And now he's already paid.
Yeah.
yeah,
His
We
contract
already
is bigger
paid?
than Smith's.
Yeah, I just said Brandon Ayuk because we talked a lot about
Yeah.
A.J. Brown. I think the biggest thing with Brandon Ayuk is that he's under team control for 2 more years. He has his 4th year, and then he has his 5th year option the year after that. and is 26 and is one of the best receivers in the league. So I look at all those things and I see that's going to be a significant trade. Like that's going to be a lot to get him out of San Francisco.
You're not just giving up like a pick.
Right. I think that's probably 34 and then maybe your first round pick next year.
Yeah. But I mean, no question what the Patriots need and could slip into what they have right now, perfectly complement it, be that outside guy, and
You'll throw Juju in.
oh yeah,
Straight in the pot.
sure, and a bag of
That's nice of you.
and a bag of balls. All right, Ryan and Milford. Hey, thanks for calling in. What's going on?
How's it going?
Good.
I was wondering as this episode finishes up, what you guys think the steal of the draft will be.
Good. Great question.
Where will it happen?
Yeah.
Thanks for calling, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks for calling, Ryan.
Steal the just like
This guy.
We say stealing the draft in general,
Just like
or just for the
anybody?
Patriots?
How do you how do you know? Like, what if you said,
Bub means.
nice. Well done. Well done.
Troy Franklin is the guy I kind of like for Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say he's going to be the steal of the draft, but he goes 20 to the first round. That ain't a steal.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where the guy gets picked.
Well, it's also like your question, Paul, of who's going to be the biggest bust, and it's like there's a certain line of like you can't be a bust if you're drafted like second round on, right? Or you mean even like mid first round on? Like it's got to be a guy that's going to go in the top 15 that has some hype.
Yeah, like Evan, JJ McCarthy.
I mean, I think
like you.
That's
Jane
yeah, right. I know-
Great marketing team, JJ McCarthy has. I'll tell you that.
He sure does. Well,
All of a sudden, going to go
Somebody
number one
lost-
overall after not playing a game of football. It's
how many games
unbelievable.
has he lost? 3 games.
And by the way, we're not publishing those. Those are just
Well,
for fun.
we are now.
The busts are just stuff we talk about.
But I think if you believed
I just
in,
don't want people to say, they said that this was the, and then they took Jaden Daniels, and then they took it down. They got J.J. McCarthy and those chickens that they put it down. No, we're not publishing who we think is the biggest bust in the draft.
No, it's. I mean, it's hard, but I mean, I think if you believed in one of those quarterbacks, like the second tier kind of guys, like if you really believe like in Michael Penix, like our friend Eldred does, somebody like that, I could see that makes sense. Is like he's going to be the breakout. If you felt
That's
like
a
you
good
wanted
pick
to make
for
that,
for
you know.
Ryan's question, Michael Penix.
Penix.
Yeah,
Penix. Yeah, I agree.
it's a pretty good one.
If he's like the 5th quarterback taken, he turns out to be the best. That's a steal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would go with some of these day 2 receivers.
That's a good.
I just
angle,
think
too.
that some of these guys, my guy's Roman Wilson. I think Roman Wilson, if he played for Washington or Texas in one of those offenses that threw the ball 600 times, his numbers would have been through the roof.
Absolutely.
The only reason why he didn't have the production was because of the type of offense that he was in at Michigan. Great film, great Senior Bowl. Just gets open all the time. I've compared him to Monroe St. Brown throughout this whole thing because he's just one of those guys that's just uncoverable in the slot at times. I think that there's a really good chance that Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, like one of those guys is going to be a 100-catch guy in the league, and he's going to go in the 3rd round, and he's going to be Terry McLaurin. And we're going to be like, how did this happen?
Do you think
I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be a wide receiver.
I got to ask Evan this though, like. So 27% here on this, and we know that it's kind of flawed. But like of this wide receiver group that you look at the first round guys that are going to go, I mean, do you really think that only 1 in 4 of these receivers
No,
is going
and
to work out?
I would wonder. So that was going all the way back to 2000,
and it's through 19.
right? And I would wonder if we did it the last decade. And I understand that you can't do like last year's class already. You're not supposed to do that sort of thing. But I think that 2 things. One, the receivers have gotten better. Just point blank.
The last 5 years, it feels like the receivers have come in and made immediate impacts.
The talent has just gotten better. I think the 7-on-7 stuff, the spring football stuff, these guys are catching the ball, running routes year round, starting in like the 7th grade. I think the other thing is that we probably have gotten better at evaluating the position now that it's a more premium spot on the roster. Like, I just don't think that you're going to see like Roy Williams anymore,
Right.
or like
N'Keal Harry.
Who's that?
N'Keal Harry,
Sorry.
Kevin White, like those types of guys. I think that these guys now are so much better than those guys were.
You know what I
coming
think
in.
also, it's like, you talk about we've gotten better evaluating. I think obviously their systems that they're in are, that they're throwing the ball so much more in college than ever before. But think about how many guys are now doing the evaluating of that different kind of that young offensive mind, system-based offensive mind. They know what they're looking for a little bit more than and this is not a shot at Bill, but the traditional old school defensive-minded coaches that have been around for 30 years. You know, Bill didn't love wide receivers in
He
general.
thought Jonathan Baldwin was just as good as Julio Jones.
You know, he didn't.
We don't forget that.
But he didn't.
Okay?
He didn't.
Sorry,
I don't
Bill.
think he respected the position.
Yeah, 100%.
He felt like it was one of the complimentary spots. Whereas I feel now, if you polled the 32 head coaches, 28 of them would say wide receiver is a premium spot. Like it used to be like quarterback, left tackle, edge guy, cover guy.
Yep.
I'm not sure that it's wide receiver has displaced certainly one or if not two of those spots.
Yeah.
I think they call it on the Move the Sticks podcast the like triple P's or something like that. It's like passers, playmakers, and
Pass rusher?
pass rushers maybe, or like those are like the I should know this off the top of my head, but that's like the buzzword.
Especially if you're going to bring it up. As
Yeah,
an
right.
example.
All right.
Probably
Bad
not.
day.
Those are like the buzz positions. I just know playmaker is
Yeah.
one of them. That's why I brought it up. That the people around the league, not just us media people, but people around the league are now putting playmaker, whether that's a Travis Kelce or it's a Davante Adams. They're now putting that in the category of these other premium positions.
Yeah,
It's
Playmaker's
like it's
not.
been 10 years, at least since running backs were thought of that way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the running backs went away, and now I think the wide receivers are replaced them. Like,
Speaking of that,
happens.
congratulations to Reggie Bush for getting his
Yeah.
Heisman.
Yeah,
Actually,
back.
Heisman.
Deserved.
We're coming down the pike here, but let's just grab Patty and Agawam. Hey, Patty.
What is up, everyone?
Oh, not much.
How we
We're
doing?
ready
Hey,
for
Patty.
this draft, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, I've been ready since about October. October 8th, the Saints game. So I got a question about a prospect that I think is sort of flying under the radar. Roger Rosengarten,
Yeah, Evan loves
offensive
Evan's a good-
tackle. He was Michael Penix's blindside tackle. Granted, he played on the right side, but you look at the guy, you look at his numbers, 32 total pressures over the last 2 years with 0 sacks. And like Evan said, both years, over 600 pass attempts. How come he's not generating as much buzz? And if we were to pick him, do you think we could flip him to LT? And that's all I got, guys.
Thanks, Patty.
Yeah, not to pick on Patty. I think Roger Rosengarten's getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
I think that he's somebody that the league is very, very high
Not a
on.
first rounder.
Not gonna. No, I don't
First-
think he's gonna go that high.
But he's one of the guys
but-
that actually has some promise that's in the second tier.
I judge it on the
He's-
Paul test.
yeah.
If it's a tackle that I know about, he's getting buzz.
Yeah, he's
Right,
gonna-
there you go.
Let me put you
It's a
this
good
way:
test as
he's
any.
going in the top 64. Right, like I'd be pretty shocked if he's there by round 3. Very explosive mover, so like zone teams are gonna love him, like because he can get lateral and he can move his feet in very, very good range at the position. His biggest concern is just general size and play strength. He's not a very long, big tackle, and that's works against him because he's very aggressive to make up for that. And these well-schooled rushers, oh, you're going to come jump out at me, swim move by. Like those types of things happen a lot to him on film against the better teams like Michigan ate his lunch in the national championship game. But you watch the rest of his film and the other 11 games, he's like outstanding. But that one game, he was really rough. So
It's kind of a tough name.
And if that's
Roger.
kind of the his size, and that might not necessarily be conducive to making the switch to the left side. I know
Yeah.
nothing about how hard it is, other than what the coaches have always said, that it's not an easy transition.
yeah, I think the
but
one
he sounds like
yeah.
he's built like a right tackle.
Yeah, I think the one thing for him is just going to be let's get him into an NFL strength and conditioning program and see if we can improve his anchor so that he doesn't have to be so aggressive. Guys that are big like Patrick Paul, he just sits back in his chair and waits for you to come to him. And you're not going to go through me because I'm 340 pounds. So you're going to have to go around me. I'm going to sit back like this. Roger Rosengarten is like 305, 300, so he has to be aggressive and go get guys, and that's where those smart guys will get into him.
All right, guys, we're coming down. We got 2 minutes left here. I mean, this is capping off months of draft coverage, it feels like, as Patty said, going back to October. But have we missed anything here? I mean, we've done so many shows, Patriots Unfiltered, Patriots Draft Countdown, interviews, prospect breakdown. I mean, we've done it. What have we missed something? That's the last question I have for y'all.
Mikey, this is your opportunity to talk about Holy Cross.
We were just talking about
The
that.
guard, I know, Jalen Coker.
I almost sent you a
Evan
text
broke it down.
with the screenshot of the Holy Cross all 22.
I've had some former coaches from Holy Cross expressing dissatisfaction that they haven't gotten an Evan Lazar film breakdown.
I'll
so
put a clip up.
put a
today.
clip up there.
You're
for,
still in touch
for
with
Coach Kane.
the James Madison
Oh,
staff?
yeah. Oh, they love the show. They're big Perillo fans.
That's awesome.
They
I know you introduced me to them. Those
Drew
are great
Cannon.
guys.
Yeah, you met them last. Yeah, they're great guys, and no, they still love all the shows. So But I feel like we've kind of done a good job, though, summing everything up, right? I mean, I feel like we've covered it, and now it's just rubber meets the road tomorrow night.
Are we going to ask everybody what they think the pick is?
Yeah.
Oh, Drake
May.
Drake May.
I'm not gonna lie.
May.
I feel like something crazy is gonna happen. We're gonna trade out, but I'm gonna say May.
So I do this every single year because I'm a nerd. Like it's so bad.
No.
But every single year I watch my favorite player in the draft, his best tape again. I haven't watched Drake May tape since like January.
You're not letting yourself do it?
Right.
You don't want to get attached?
No. So I did it last night with both him and Jaden. And I watched Drake May against Syracuse, where he just absolutely tore them apart. And I watched Jaden Daniels against Florida, which was a video game.
That was the 600-yard game?
Yeah, which is absolutely stupid. And I do it every single year because I want to remind myself of, like, we nitpick these guys. And we rake these guys through the coals for 6 months. Those guys are pretty darn good. Like, they're pretty darn good prospects, and they can't go wrong with either guy. So if Washington takes Jaden, I'm taking Drake. If they take Drake, I'm taking Jaden. I'm not trading the pick.
That's how I am.
I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm not doing anything crazy. I think that's
I'm with you.
That's what you got to do.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. That's going to be a wrap on Patriots Draft Countdown presented by Bud Light here for 2024. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to everything. And, of course, we'll be live with you throughout the draft here for Patriots Unfiltered. We'll be live on video starting at 7:30 on Thursday night, 6:30 on Friday night, and then we'll be on 1 to 3 on Saturday for those last couple rounds. So plenty of coverage coming your way. It's the draft, folks. Buckle up.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.